Wow, hello there. Welcome back to my channel. That was an awful start, but I'm gonna jump right into it. We're doing a Q&A because I have not done one since I actually started back in the classroom. I did a Q&A shortly after announcing that I was going back to teaching, but now that I've been in the thick of it for a few months, I figured we could come back together. I put a little Q box out on Instagram, asked what questions you had, and I picked out the ones that I got asked most often, so let's jump into it. I tried to order these in a way that made sense, but the first one I want to start with was actually a really sweet question that I got from quite a few people, just a general like, how are you doing? Overall, I'm doing fantastic. I am so happy. Am I stressed and overwhelmed? Yes. Have I had a lot of late nights? Yes, we will come back to that. Do I have balance right now? Probably not, but I am so happy. And I told Billy this the other day, even though I am stressed, even though I am overwhelmed, I am so happy with my decision to come back to the classroom. I feel so lucky to be at the school that I'm at, in the district that I'm at, and I just feel like I'm where I am meant to be. So overall, I'm doing really well. Thank you for asking. Did you feel out of place going back into teaching after so long, or did you adjust quickly? It's interesting to hear after so long because I was out for 3 years, and while that may be longer than most, I know a lot of teachers never take time off, or they may only take a year off. To me, 3 years is not a super long time, but that being said, I was actually talking to my principal the other day after my observation when I had my post-conference, and I was saying how certain things came back so quickly and felt so natural, and then other things have taken a little bit of adjusting, mostly just getting used to the mental fatigue. Like on a Friday, your brain is just so fried.
You use your brain too much.
You just kind of sit there and you're like, I need to not do anything for the next hour to mentally recover from the week. But a lot of the aspects of actually teaching, I feel like came back right away. But at the same time, I was still teaching. I was just teaching teachers. And I think that experience helped me kind of stay in tune with everything. But overall, I think I adjusted faster than I was expecting. I feel like by September, so within the first month, I was like, oh yeah, like I feel like I'm right back at home again. What has been your favorite thing about coming back into the classroom? Biggest challenge? I would say my favorite thing has just been forming those relationships with my students and their families. I don't think I realized how much I missed that, being out of the classroom and getting to come home and tell Billy, you know, oh, well, so-and-so today did this. And it's always funny because he hasn't met my students, but it's as if he knows them because I'm constantly sharing just all the things that bring me joy throughout the day or make me laugh or like the connections that I have with them. It's just, that has been my favorite thing. I have missed that more than I realized that I did. Biggest challenge, I would say, has been the time management and trying to be okay with not doing it all because I'm a perfectionist, therefore I'm not okay with not doing it all. And I'm definitely spending too much time working and I know that. So trying to strike that balance, but we're gonna come back to that. Oh, we're gonna come back to that right now because the next question, does FRFR mean for real, for real? I feel like that's what that means, but I'm also super out of touch with all the sayings and things. How many hours are you spending working outside of school hours? A lot, too many, and I know that, and I'm coming by it honest. I'm being vulnerable and just saying that even though my intention was to find that balance, that has not happened yet. And it's okay, because we're getting there. In terms of working outside of contract hours, I get here most mornings just before 6 a.m., which is a little over an hour before I need to be here. And then in terms of how late I stay, I would say most days I'm staying at least 2 hours past contract hours, but it could be as many as 3 or 4, just depending. Part of that also is to avoid traffic, if we're being honest, because if I were to leave, there's like a window and it's better for me just to wait until after that window because traffic is so bad that I'm gonna sit in traffic for an hour trying to get to the gym if I leave within that time frame. Whereas if I wait until after, I can be there in half an hour.
Whoa, traffic jam.
I don't know if that makes sense. At least that's how I justify it to myself. All that being said, I'm not necessarily staying because I feel like I have to. I'm staying because I want to, because it truly brings me joy making progress, feeling like I'm getting things done. I know that it can lead to burnout, and I know I've experienced that in the past, but I also know myself, and I know that I need that comfort of getting things done and checking off the boxes to feel good. I mean, honestly, that brings me joy. Plus, when Billy has to work until a certain time, I might as well stay and continue working, because otherwise I'm going home and just kind of twiddling my thumbs until he gets there. Again, these are all just ways that I've justified it in my head, but there's your answer. What time do you go to bed if you are up so early? I'm in awe. So I have been getting up every morning at 5 a.m. and I typically leave my house around 5:40-ish, and then most nights I get to bed. I get in bed. The goal is to be in bed by 10. That doesn't happen. Most nights I'm in bed around 10:30 to 11, falling asleep somewhere between, well, on an early night, I might be asleep by 11:45, but realistically, most nights it's somewhere between 12 and 12:30. There have been nights where it's later. There have been nights where it's earlier, not many, but I am in awe of myself too, because I've never been a morning person, and actually that brings me to the next question. How do you like being a morning person now? I still don't think I qualify as a morning person, because I do not thrive in the morning and I need a solid hour before I can talk to anyone. And I don't think I am a morning person, but I have adapted to getting up in the morning. And I'm really proud of myself for sticking to getting up at 5 a.m. every day, because I remember, what year was it? I think it was 2020. I was doing a different goal every month, and I think it was January. My goal was to wake up at 5 a.m. every day for a month, and I did it, but by the end I was like, no, this is not me. And it was really hard at that time, partially because I was in grad school, so I would like get up and work on papers, and that was not fun. Whereas now I'm getting up and I'm coming to my classroom, and there is something so comforting about once I get in here. And as a result, it's not as hard to get up, because I do look forward to it. As crazy as that is to say, I don't look forward to waking up, but I look forward to like the comfort of once I get in my classroom, and I almost have this like, okay, I can relax kind of feeling. So I am proud of myself for sticking to that time frame. But I also know that I'm not getting as much sleep as I should. I try to catch up on the weekends, but we all know that that's not how sleep actually works. So I don't know, maybe come January, that will be one of my goals, is to get more sleep. Are you still taking time for yourself? Yes, despite everything that I've said, I am still taking time for myself, going to the gym. That is definitely my me time. And then on the weekends, I'm not really doing work on the weekends. I am meal prepping and doing things to get ready for the school week, but I'm not necessarily doing school work, at least very rarely. If I am doing things, it's typically the fun things that I want to do, like making the decor or making little treats for my students that I don't have time for during the work week. But I'm not typically planning lessons. I'm never grading papers. I'm not doing those types of things on the weekend. So for example, this past weekend, Billy and I went to a barbecue class, and it was so much fun. And I am enjoying my weekends, and I do feel like I'm getting enough relaxation and rejuvenation to set me up for the week ahead, knowing that the week will be long, because it will be a lot of early mornings and late nights. What do you think of teaching in Texas, TEKS, STAR, etc.? Honestly, I feel like coming in, I thought it was gonna feel very different, but in reality, it feels very much the same as when I taught in Maryland. I mean, when I taught in Maryland, I felt changes between the two different districts that I taught in. And to me, teaching here, it just feels like, okay, it's a different district. I have to get used to how they do things. But in terms of like the TEKS, I'm still trying to learn and memorize the TEKS, because I used to have most of the Common Core state standards for math and less so for reading, but mostly for math. I had them almost memorized back when I taught in Maryland. So I don't have the TEKS memorized, but in terms of teaching the TEKS, a standard is a standard, and so even though the standards are worded different, and some of the standards require different skills that I was not previously teaching in 4th grade, we're gonna come back to that, because I am gonna do a video at the end of the year kind of comparing the things that were different compared to when I taught in Maryland. But I don't feel like the TEKS are all that different. And then I haven't done STAR yet, so I can't speak to that. We are in the process of doing our interim testing, which is almost like our warm up for STAR. But again, at least thus far, it just feels like another high stakes test. And even though we didn't do STAR in Maryland, we did PARCC testing, and then they changed the name to something else. But all of that is basically the same with subtle differences, but those differences exist even within the same state. So I really haven't found it to be all that different, and definitely not as different as what I was anticipating based on how people would make it sound. They made it seem like Texas was its own country, and I definitely don't feel that way, at least thus far. Does your school use a math curriculum at all, or does every teacher create their own stuff? We do have a math curriculum. It's a new math curriculum this year, so all of us are kind of learning it together, but it is Eureka Math. And I am planning the math lessons, so I am creating materials, namely slides, to help us guide the lessons, and I am sharing them out with my team, or rather all of us who teach math. So yes, we have a curriculum, but I am still creating materials based on the curriculum to make it easier to teach. Are you doing small groups for math, rotations, or must do, may do? So I'm not doing typical small group rotations where it's like, okay, I'm gonna meet with this group during this time, and then I meet with this group during this time. We do have what we call math flex time, which is a time when students are receiving additional support. Some students may be going to intervention. I may have some students who are going to like tag. It just depends. And during that time, I am pulling students and giving them support, but it's not in this structured small group rotation format. It's rather, I'm just constantly keeping a list of the students I need to work with for various reasons, whether that's reteaching or enrichment or getting, caught up on work, all of the things. I am very loosey-goosey with it, and so every day looks different. But almost every day my students are completing an exit ticket based on that lesson, and I use that to really guide that flex time, as well as any previous graded assignments that they did or assessments that they took. I am just pulling students and working with them either one-on-one, or sometimes I'll group students together based on what I've observed that they needed. Oh, but going off of the must do, may do, during that time, my students have a must do, may do up on the board. It's almost the same every day, but they have to complete their exit ticket, possibly an assignment. They have to get a certain number of minutes on iReady. That's all on the must-do side. Then they move to may-do, and that's where they can do some of the learning games on iReady, or they can do our math flex spin, so they can play Shut the Box or Multiplication War. And I have other options on Fridays where they can get on to maybe some more fun type of things. But yes, I am utilizing a must-do, may-do, just not structured small group rotations, if that makes sense. What is your system for staying on top of / managing grades? I am very proud of myself that I have not gotten backed up on grades at all. Honestly, my system is basically the day that it's turned in, I am grading it. And that's just because I don't like holding on to papers, so I like to get it out of the way. And because I stay after school most days, that's typically when I'm grading it. That'll be one of the first things I do. I actually enjoy grading papers, and so when I come in after dismissal and I come into my room, I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna sit down and grade. I look forward to that. It's almost like a time to just kind of give my brain a break. I find it to be very calming and kind of monotonous, and I enjoy that after a long day of teaching. So if I don't get it graded that day, I'm definitely getting it graded the next day, during my planning time or after school. And then I get it out of here. So I will send it home with students. I know there's a question about that, so I'll come back to that kind of system, but I grade it right away. And then as a result, I never get backed up on grading. That being said, because I teach math and science, I do think it is easier for me to grade assignments versus if I were teaching reading and writing and had these lengthy writing assignments. So take that for what it is, that because of the subject areas I teach, it is much easier for me to stay on top of grading. Okay, next question. What is your take-home system for all the paperwork that needs to go home? We utilize Tuesday folders. So every Tuesday, our students have a folder that is stuffed with graded papers, as well as any handouts from the office or PTA, newsletters, things like that that need to go home. So Monday after school, one of my tasks is always to stuff the Tuesday folders. Because I'm putting graded papers in there, I cannot have students do it. I cannot have volunteers do it. It has to be me. In theory, on Tuesday morning, I could just pass out the folders and then pass out the graded papers to each individual student to put in their folder. But time is of the essence, and I already feel like I'm short on time with my students and trying to fit in all the instruction, so I would rather just do it myself. That being said, my switch teacher and I have to kind of coordinate, because obviously if I grade papers for her class, I have to give them to her to send home in Tuesday folders and vice versa. So she will send over papers as she has them graded. And I recently switched, you may have noticed this drawer back here, it used to say copy, I think, and I was never using that. So now I have grade and then I have Tuesday folders. Grade would be things that I'm in the process of grading. Sometimes I will grade an assignment, and if I'm waiting on 1 or 2 students to finish it, it will kind of live in this drawer until I have everyone's. That way, when I put it into the Tuesday folder drawer, it's a complete class set. So Monday afternoons, I sit down with the Tuesday folders, I take all the graded papers in the stacks and lay them out in front of me so that I literally just go one by one and I take the top paper and it will all be for that student, as well as any other handouts that have to go home. For the most part, I can have Tuesday folders done in under somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. It's very efficient because of that, and I don't mind doing it since it doesn't take up a lot of time. But that is how we are managing all the take-home papers. If I grade something on a Monday, it might not go home the next day in Tuesday folders. It might go home the following week. It just depends. But that's where the papers live until they get stuffed in the Tuesday folders, which are on my back counter. And my students turn in their Tuesday folders on Wednesday. And as they turn them in, I go ahead and put them in alphabetical order so that it's easier the next Monday when I've got to stuff them again. How do you get so motivated to stay organized? Y'all, it's not a choice. It is a choice. It's just how I operate. For me, I don't need motivation to stay organized. It's the only way I know how to function. My motivation is the fact that if I'm not organized, I am stressed. And organization allows me to take a deep breath and feel less anxious about everything. So in reality, it's just kind of how I operate. And I think I've been that way since I was a kid. You know, I've just always really thrived with structure and routine and having a system, and I love when everything has a home and I know exactly where it goes. I'm a rule follower, y'all. That's all you need to know.
It's dignified, quieter, there are rules.
Classroom management tips. So I was really happy to get feedback from my principal after my observation. She highlighted my biggest strength, and she mentioned the classroom community building. And I felt so proud to hear her say that, because I remember as a brand new teacher, that was my weakest area. So to now have that be my strength feels really, really good. And I think my biggest classroom management tips just surround building that classroom community. I have a full video all about classroom management and kind of the systems I'm using this year. So I will link that for you if you want to go back and watch it. I kind of utilize a combination of, we have whole school things that we do, like the house system, but then we also have class rewards and incentives and class community building exercises. And then we have things more on the individual level. And I think for me, having that balance has worked really well. Something new I've done this year is my Golden Emerson Award, where every week we highlight a student who has really exemplified that classroom community that I so desperately want to maintain in my classroom throughout the year. Because I think building it at the beginning of the year is different than maintaining it. And having that Golden Emerson Award and really highlighting those students who are doing a good job of being a good classmate and looking out for each other and all of those things has helped to maintain it. And especially because my students then pass the award on to the next student. And I feel like it's really created this bond in our classroom that I have loved. My students have loved it. And it's the little things. It's me leaving sticky notes on their desk, or really being mindful of knowing them as people in addition to students. And then that way, if they come in, I can tell if something's off and if they need a little extra love that day. One thing that one of my teen teachers, we had in our beginning of the year, back to school slides with families, was this handle with care. We basically told families, if your student has had a rough morning or a rough night or a rough weekend, and they just kind of need, a little extra love, just send us an email with the subject line, handle with care. You don't need to give us any details, but it lets us know hey, something's going on and we might need to love on that student a little extra today. And the little things like that, I think, make all the difference. And getting to know them, talking with them at recess, talking with them in the morning, having the lunch bunches, letting them get to know me. It takes time and it takes vulnerability and it takes effort, but But once you put in that time and effort to get to know your students and to foster that community as a class and as a school, it makes it so much easier. You don't have the behavior management because you're proactive, and therefore you don't necessarily have the behaviors happen as a result. I don't know if that makes sense. That was probably awful, but if you want more concrete strategies, go back and watch the classroom management video. What's the best thing about your new school this year? So many things. I don't know how to pick just one. I think holistically, it is the community. The community amongst the staff members, as well as the students, as well as the families, and just the community at large. I mean, I have just been so impressed by that. And y'all have probably heard me share a lot about like our PTA and the families and how involved they are. And it's representative of the culture that my principal has created, because she has been here since the school opened. And I just feel so lucky to teach here, because it is truly like its own little world. And it's funny how I was talking to one of my team teachers who has only ever taught here, and she's like, is it like this everywhere else? And I'm like, no, it is not. Like, this is a very special place, just the way that the standards that we uphold, the expectations, but putting in effort where it matters. I remember that's one of the things my principal mentioned during my interview. She's like, we don't go above and beyond with everything, just in the areas where we're gonna get the most out of it. And I've truly felt like that's the case. So I have loved most just being able to become a part of that community, because it feels like an honor. All right, this next one, I got asked a lot, and I know it's one everyone's curious about. With how the year is going so far, will you continue teaching next year? Yes, absolutely. So long as I'm allowed to stay and they're gonna continue to have me here, absolutely, without a doubt. I am so happy that I came back. I'm so happy that I ended up here. And I have told Billy, I'm like, this makes me not want to teach anywhere else, because I feel so lucky to be here. And yeah, I'm looking forward to next year, because now that I've gotten my feet wet, and I feel like I've made friends with staff members, and I'm becoming part of the community, and I'm learning the curriculum, and I'm learning the TEKs, and I'm learning how things are done here. I think next year will be that much better, and knowing how much I've loved this year, even with the stress and the overwhelm, makes me that much more excited for next year. All right, so the next few are not necessarily teaching related, so we'll just kind of end on a more fun note. And if you don't care about this part, you can click off of it. But how's the gym routine been with going back to teaching? My gym routine has been solid. I am still training 5 days a week. Some weeks, if it's busy, I will condense 2 days into one. So I'm still doing 5 training sessions, but I will do it in 4 days instead of 5. Not ideal, but it's what I have to do sometimes. The training has not necessarily taken a hit. My hardest training days are Saturday and Sunday, when I have more time to dedicate to it. I take Mondays off. I train Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Tuesday is my long day, where I go to my gym that's pretty far away, and there have been some nights where I'm not getting home until after 8 p.m., and that is rough. But it's only 1 day a week that is that super long day. Wednesdays and Thursdays, I go to a gym that's much closer, and they're easier training sessions, so I can get through them more quickly. And then Friday, I take a rest day, and it repeats. So the gym routine has stayed solid, and I think that's because I have followed that type of routine for years. And so for me, it's a non-negotiable. I don't think about, am I gonna go to the gym? It's, when am I going to the gym? I'm still going after school, because with me getting up so early, I could not function at like 2:30 in the morning. That's the time I'd have to get up to make it all work. But that being said, I also got a lot of questions about powerlifting and when I'm doing my next meet. I do not have one currently on the horizon. I have not signed up for one. I don't want to put that pressure on myself, because I am such a perfectionist. I don't think it would be in my best interest, because the level of intensity I would need in my training, with the little amount of sleep that I'm getting and how bad my recovery would be, I just don't think it's worth it. I think it would be more detrimental than it would be beneficial. So for now, I don't have a meet on the horizon, but maybe sometime in the spring, or if not in the summer, I'm definitely still gonna compete. I'm still training, but for right now, I just kind of need to not have that pressure, if that makes sense. How is Ember doing now that you are not at home daily? She has adjusted really, really well. Billy works from home most weeks, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So he is home with her 3 out of the 5 days. Tuesday is a long day for her, because I don't get home until late. Billy usually gets home before me, but she's in her kennel for a while and we do feel bad. But on the days when he's home, she's out all day, and then on the weekends, we will leave her out and, you know, we try to take her for walks, take her to little areas. We've recently found a spot where we can take her off leash and throw ball with her and get all the exercise. But that being said, she has adjusted really well. And I mean, she's a great dog. And I like to think she understands. I'm probably making that up, but it's what I tell myself. Is your house still spotless? It's always so pristine. Y'all, it has never been spotless, okay? Let's just get that out of the way. It has never been spotless. I used to do a whole house weekly clean. That has not happened since I went back in the classroom. Billy has taken over a lot of the responsibilities, like the dishes and some of those day-to-day things. He'll do the vacuuming, which has been a huge, huge help. That being said, it is not as clean as it used to be, which I would not expect it to be because I'm in this new realm and it is what it is. The other night, in my typical Friday afternoon slumber where I come home and just lay horizontal on the couch for a while, I was looking at my coffee table and I could just see like the dirt and the dust and the dog hair. And I was like, I should probably wipe that down. Did I? No. So if your house is also a mess, you can feel better knowing that my house is also a mess and it's fine. I'm still surviving. It's not the end of the world, but I try to do little bits of cleaning on the weekend. It's definitely not what it used to be. And then final one, this is just a fun one. Favorite Ninja Creami flavor at the moment. So even though it's November, I'm still living in pumpkin season because adding pumpkin to a Ninja Creami, like the pumpkin puree, makes it so creamy. It's very, very good. I just mix almond milk, some like Fairlife milk. I use the Mootopia brand from H-E-B. It's just a higher protein. It's like a lactose-free milk. I'm not lactose intolerant. I like it for the protein. And then almond milk stays fresh longer in my fridge than regular milk. But I mix that with protein powder and then the pumpkin puree, and I will do like a little bit of sweetener, and I'll do like some pumpkin pie spice in there. It's so good. And then I will top it with like some ginger cookies, or I had like pumpkin spice cereal and some whipped cream, so it's like a pumpkin pie. Oh, so good. All right, that is it. That was a lot of questions, but hopefully you got the answers to some of the things that you were curious about. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. If you have other questions, I'll probably do another one of these maybe toward the springtime or end of the year. You can leave them in the comments. I might not get back to them. I read the comments, but I don't always have time to respond. So thank you for being patient with me. But that being said, I love you so much. Thank you for watching. Like, truly, thank you so, so much. Don't forget to put your positive pants on, and I will catch you in the next one. I know I can't reach the camera, so we're gonna get up and come around. Bye.